Hey guys, this is Jim, WT1W, and you're watching FEP Labs Radio. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. So today I want to talk about CPS software, specifically RT Systems CPS software. And up front, I'm not sponsored by RT Systems. They have never given me any software or anything else. I own various versions of RT Systems software for multiple radios. So CPS software, which I think is customer programming software. So saying CPS software is kind of redundant. Customer programming software. We'll just call it CPS. When you get a radio, typically there is CPS available for the radio. And this lets you use your computer to program the radio from a computer interface where you have a full screen and you can set various functions. Obviously, frequencies, repeater offsets, all that kind of stuff. Most CPS will handle repeater offsets automatically for you based on the frequency you put in. You can change those frequencies and do all sorts of stuff. The reason I like the RT Systems software generally over manufacturer CPS is that, number one, the interface is very organized and looks pretty much the same between radios, whether it's a Chinese DMR radio or an Icom 9700 or a Kenwood, whichever. The software looks pretty much the same. The interface is consistent, so moving from radio to radio, I don't have to relearn CPS every time I have a different radio. The software itself is about $25 or $30. I'll put links to their website in the video description below. Some of the software, the versions of the software require you to buy specific cable from RT Systems. Many don't. It's very radio dependent. I have Anytone 578 mobile radio. Doesn't require special cable, uses a standard USB-A to USB mini connector cable. Nothing different about that. I have a Kenwood, which I did a video on last week, and we're going to play with the Kenwood again today. I have a Kenwood radio that requires their cable. While I can use Kenwood's CPS with a standard serial connection, the radio will not program with RT software without their cable. So there's that. Totally all in, if you have to buy a radio and a cable, you're looking at about a $50 investment for any given radio. You can use the software on all the radios of X type that you have. Doesn't matter. You can install it on multiple computers. I've never had an issue with hitting a license limit. That being said, I only have it on like 2 computers. The one here in my office in the house and the one out in my shop. Just depends on what radio it is and where I am when I feel the need to program it. Also, the other big feature of RT Systems software is that it does separate out the menu functionality like program keys, that kind of thing that's radio specific. It also has that. That is in an isolated submenu. We'll look at all that. But it also understands things specifically like DMR talk groups, fusion talk groups, more importantly, D-star setup. So you can hide or reveal, for example, the D-star setup, and we'll look at my 9700 programming here in a minute too. So that's the biggest thing. The other thing, especially with the DMR radios that I've discovered, and this goes back to the interface I mentioned, the DMR programming software varies wildly in what it looks like, how well it's written, and how it functions. Some DMR CPS, the BTEC software comes to mind, works fine, beautifully. Never felt the need to have to get other software. Some of the other software looks like it was written in 1998 for Windows ME and is just a horrible interface, has issues with the way it works, just a total pain in the butt. So it just kind of depends on what radio you have and what your level of tolerance for programming nonsense that you can put up with. I'm going to jump into sharing some screens with you guys, and we're going to take a look at some different CPS software, and then we're going to actually program my Kenwood D710A while we're talking. Stick with me. Before we get into the specifics of looking at individual CPS software, see, I did it, CPS. I just wanted to share with you the RT Systems site. So here is, on the front page of their site, a list of all the different manufacturers that they support some number of those radios. Everything from a Bree all the way down to Zastone. They also, of course, sell their cables separately if required. And I don't know what Schedule Meeting does. We've had them on Coffee and Ham radios. The lady that is the voice of RT Systems has been on there multiple times and talked about their software and their company and how it all works. And you should go check out those videos. And I'll put a link to those previous Coffee and Ham radio videos in the description below. But for example, I mentioned B-Tech, so let's pick on B-Tech. And then they have it broke down by handhelds, mobiles, and even GMRS radios. So if we click handhelds, then this is the programming software available for the different B-Tech handheld radios. We can go back and take a look at mobiles. And again, this is the versions that are available for different B-Tech mobile radios. They have it also broken down over here by DMR radios in particular, with all the different manufacturers of DMR radios. Off the top of my head, I mentioned crappy CPS. I think TYT is the one that sticks in my mind. But in any case, they have, as you can see here, a ton of radios that they support. We're going to look at the Kenwood specifically here in a minute. So when I bought this, I went to Kenwood, I went to mobiles, and then I found the D700, and there's the D710 and the /G, same software for both the A and the AG models. And then I had to actually get the cable from them for the program in the Kenwood. So that's what all they support. Another thing that is really nice about RT is that when you buy the software from them and you install it, you have, of course, a little license key and whatnot. But if you go back and you change computers or for some reason you uninstalled it, you can log into your account here and they will send you an email of all the versions of RT Systems that you've bought with the appropriate key so you can reinstall it on whichever computer you need to put it on. Typically, they support Windows. They do support Windows. And typically, there's also a Mac version available for a lot of these. I don't know that it's on all of them. But for example, I have the FTM 500 CPS for Mac and for Windows. When the FTM 500 came out, believe it or not, Yaesu had not released CPS for their own radio. But RT had CPS available. I bought that 500 at Hamvention 2 years ago and went back to the hotel room to program the radio and found out Yaesu didn't even have it. Looked on RT, found the 500 programming software right there, downloaded it, bought it, downloaded it, and set myself free. Okay, the first package I want to look at here is going to be the 9700 programming software from Kenwood. Here is the CPS software for it, and it works fine. And they've got it broken out into 3 separate bands, all the bands that the 9700 covers, 2 meter, 70 centimeter, and 1.2 gigahertz. What is that? 23 centimeters, I think. So you can do individual settings per band, and this is what the interface looks like. So it's okay. It's not terrible. I think it's a little weird, this whole interface here. You have to click each thing, and then some of it's a drop down, and some of it is you can type in numbers on them. Of course, you have your memory channels in this basic screen here. Your scan edges for your different bands, if you're going to use that, call channels, and so on and so forth. You can also, Icom does their cool band stacking thing, and you can tweak that in here, so every time you change frequencies, it'll jump to which part of the band you want. I'm not going to get into all the features of the 9700. So that part works pretty much like you'd think it does. I don't personally care for their interface in this, but this is usable. Now, one thing about the Icom software, you cannot program in this software without the radio being hooked up. It has to be connected because the very first thing the Icom software does is try and connect to the COM port that the radio's on and talk to it. So until your radio is connected, you can't do anything as far as programming. So if I have a 9700 coming or it's in another building, I can't sit here and reprogram it or modify the programming because I have to be connected to the 9700's serial connection to get that part to work. The part where I don't care for this is the way it works for digital and the DR mode. And I am not a D-Star expert by any stretch of the imagination. So what we can do is I have a functioning setup in my 9700 and we're obviously connected to it. So we are going to read in from the 9700 and pull it down and take a look at my config in this software. And then we're going to jump to the RT Systems software for the 9700 and take a quick look at that. All right, so it's loaded my config. And you can see I have a few things in here. Don't know that I have much on 430. Yeah, I do, because my hotspot is on 430. You know, with any digital mode, there's actual multiple steps to get it programmed. These are the actual frequencies. That is an analog on 430. This is for my hotspot with linking, unlinking, echo, and information. And if we come down here to DR mode, I don't think I'm using DR mode. And here's our digital mode. And here's our settings for different reflectors that we want to use and our different commands for those reflectors. Here are repeaters. And the Icom software will let you download their list of repeaters, their worldwide list. And you can see here they have it broken up by some major areas. I don't have everything in here. So that's a cool function there. This is my station information with my call sign and DV gateway information with my old call sign. Let me actually fix that while we're sitting here. And then all the common other functions that work on the 9700. But my point with most of this video is the layout. So this is what the 9700 layout looks like. Here are your common settings that are specific to the radio and a global kind of setup. Nothing specific to D-Star. This is more time, date, program keys, various radio settings, preamps, attenuation, some other functionality that this radio has. And then of course we can save that. And I'm going to call this 9700 config. And I have some kind of weird permission problem on my Windows computer, so I'll save that to the desktop. So that's what the 9700 software looks like there. Let's jump over and look at the RT 9700 software. So the big thing, again, that I think with the RT Systems software, and understand me, you can program these radios from the vendor software just fine. I just tend to like the RT stuff because it looks pretty similar. So in here, I need to set my COM port. I know that I'm on COM 13 with this particular radio. And then we can read in the settings from the radio. All right, that takes a minute. So this is what the interface looks like. And it's incredibly similar to every other RT Systems interface. This is our basic repeater setup here. We can go to D-Star and it will turn on the D-Star columns for us and jump us over to things that are relevant to D-Star specifically. We can also turn that back off and it will scoot out of the way. Depending on how much information you have, it's still kind of there. But our D-Star settings, these are settings that are specific to D-Star. So our linking, unlinking, etc. commands, as well as any reflectors that I want to connect to, call sign, so on and so forth. And then also we have the D-Star calculator, which brings up a separate window. Let me change to that window. And so this is our D-Star calculator window here. And then we can find and hunt down D-Star repeaters based on country, US state, city, probably other states for different countries. Let's see, Australia. Yep. So there's the Australian states. And then down to the city and state and city level. We can also do all of our basic setup with our call sign and whether we're going to have a repeater, our destination, our talk, echo, status, and unlink commands. Talk, link, same thing. And again, I don't want to get into a D-Star setting but there's all our reflectors. Here are repeaters. And this is where I would also add in my hotspot to use specifically. So all the D-Star specific settings are in this one window. And if we go back over here to the main window, of course, send it, get it, set up the COM port. We can adjust the settings, the speed, fast and slow, or fast and normal. As long as it works, it's going to be on fast for me. Let's see. And then the other thing, and this is on every RT Systems program I've ever used, and this is cool. The Icom 9700 software has this function somewhat for getting the Icom data, but this lets you pull from radio reference, repeater book, RFinder, or from other external frequency lists that you have, which is pretty slick. I don't think that window is wanting to show up because of the way I'm capturing the screen, but that is an excellent function. So what I'm going to do is pull in data from radio reference, and I'm going to pull in Dayton, Ohio, because it's coming up. So I've got my radio reference login set up, and there's a window popped up in the middle of the screen you can't see. And so it's going to pull all the Montgomery County, Ohio data, and then pop that up in a separate tab for us. And it's thinking, and there's our tab. And now I have a very exhaustive listing of repeaters, reflectors, other things besides ham, obviously, pulled into this software. And all of the RT Systems software does that. So that is an outstanding function on this software. One other feature that's in all the RT software is the ability to copy and paste from our radio reference search that we found. So I can right-click, copy all these, and then jump back over to my 9700 side, right-click and paste all that stuff in. I didn't do that, but you can do that. So that's very useful. And I can move from field to field. And in that way, it's similar to a lot of other CPS software. But the big thing is the 9700 CPS looks just like the FTM 500, looks just like a 5D, looks just like a Kenwood, etc., etc. All right, so I've jumped over to the 710 now. And this is one of the ones that requires their cable. It's an odd pinout on the Kenwood side, like a 6 or 8 pin DIN to a USB. This did not work with the standard serial connection that I can use the Kenwood software with, but it is what it is. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get current data from the radio. I've already set up the COM port, cable's plugged in, go gadget go. It's going to ponder it a second, and it starts reading from the radio. And there we go, it's reading. It puts that up in a separate window. All right, so it's read in the config from my radio. This is the same config file because I had previously saved this and it reloaded the last config I had. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the radio reference thing again. So we're going to say external data, radio reference search. We're going to pull that in, and there is all of the repeater information for Dayton, Ohio. Repeaters, simplex, whatever. A lot of systems that may or may not be valid for public access or that you cannot program into your ham radio, but we pulled all of it from radio reference. And it's easy enough because it's sorted by the county, the category and agency, and then the actual name of what it is, along with, and this is the cool part, tone information and everything else. So I love getting the data out of radio reference like this. So and I'm just going to randomly pick some. Let me see. I want to add all these fire departments. So I am going to highlight all of the fire departments in Montgomery County, Ohio. Right click, copy. I'm going to jump over here to the config I just loaded in off the disk, or out of the radio rather. Paste. And now I have added in all of those radios, just like that. And notice that this has the mode, whether it's FM narrow or wide, tones, or transmit and or receive, channel spacing, everything. So this will work with anything that is in radio reference. The software will pull it out of radio reference. I'm not 100% sure if you're required to have a paid account with Radio Ref. I do. It's like $30 a year, well worth it in my opinion. So now I can go back and I can plug this all into the radio. And like the other RT software on the Kenwood, here's the specific system menu is what I would call it. So here is our specific system menu for the Kenwood. And of course, settings that are general across the radio, login, password, memory group names, so on and so forth. This radio has Echolink, WindLink, weather functionality built into it as well. And we can make all these settings and save this as an external file or let it save into our main CPS file either way. So that is how that works. And then if we want to import someone else's config, of course we can. Easy enough to do. On the Kenwood, here are our preferences for the software. Preferences right here. This is, again, basic setup for memory defaults, how the program is going to work, so on and so forth. So in any case, I really like the software. This gives you just such a ton of functionality. So you can see why I like the software. The interface is consistent across every radio, whether it's a TYT Chinese DMR radio or straight FM. This will program hundreds of radios. The last I heard from RT Systems, 200 or 300 different radios, mobiles, HTs, and HF radios. I've used this with a 991A. I've used it on a 7300. I have the Kenwood TS2000 version for my TS2000. This software covers just about every radio you can think of. Now, does it cover every radio in the world? No, but I'd say 200 or 300 is a pretty good start. I will put a link to RT Systems in the description down below. Guys, I hope you got something out of this today. If you would, make sure you give me a thumbs up, share this with your friends, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel and ring the bell, all that's in the dingus below, so you get notified whenever I post any new videos. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one. 73.